Hey everybody, this is Unit 5 Formative 2, Video 3. We're going to be solving quadratic equations with the quadratic formula. Alright, so before we can solve them with the quadratic formula, you need to get the quadratic formula written down. That's going to be x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. And then your discriminant is actually going to be part of that quadratic formula, so it's going to be the part that is underneath the square root here. So that is just going to be the b squared minus 4 times a times c. And that actually tells you how many solutions the quadratic has. Okay, so if the discriminant is greater than 0, okay, you're going to have 2 solutions. If your discriminant is less than 0, you're going to have no solutions. And if your discriminant is equal to 0, you're going to have 1 solution. Okay, so these formulas will make a little bit more sense here once we actually do a problem, but just make sure you have them written down. Okay, so here is a quadratic. You guys have seen this the last couple days already. First thing you're going to want to do is list your A, your B, and your C. Okay, well, in order to list your A, B, and C, you need to make sure that it's equal to 0 or in standard form. So we have it equal to 0, so this is in standard form, so we're good to go. So your A value is always the value that's in front of the x squared. So that would be a 1 in this case because we can put a 1 there. All right. Your b value is going to be what's in front of the x's, so in this case it's negative 6. And then your c value is going to be the one without a variable, so that would be negative 10 in this case. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and plug it in the quadratic formula. So I'm just going to rewrite the quadratic formula real quick here. Negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And it's literally a plug and chug problem from this point. So we're going to plug in the values that we have into our formula. So x is going to be equal to negative b. That means the opposite of b. Well, if b is negative 6, when I plug it in, it's going to become a positive 6. Plus or minus the square root. Okay, so instead of putting b squared in there, I actually like to square that in my head. So negative 6 squared is negative 6 times negative 6, so I'm going to get a 36. Minus 4 times a times c, and I like to put my a and c in parentheses. So the a is 1, and your c is negative 10. All over 2 times a, so again, I like to do that part in my head too, so 2 times 1 would give you 2. So all I did there was plug in my values. Now from this point, it's all calculator work. Okay, so you're going to put this part right here into your calculator. 36 minus 4 times 1 times negative 10. And plug it in exactly how it looks. So you're plugging in, without the square root, 36 minus 4 parentheses 1 parentheses parentheses negative 10 parentheses. And when you do that, you're going to get x is equal to, the 6 still stays where it is because you didn't do anything, plus or minus the square root of 76 in this case, all divided by 2. Okay, and now you can set it up into 2 different problems because we have that plus or minus sign. Well, that means that one of my problems is going to be x equals 6 plus the square root of 76 all divided by 2. And the other one is going to be x is equal to 6 minus the square root of 76, all divided by 2. Okay, from there, again, it's just calculator work. So we're going to take 6 plus the square root of 76 and divide that by 2, and we get x is equal to, so this one over here, so x is going to be equal to 7.36. And then this one here, when you plug it in your calculator, you're going to get x is equal to negative 1.36. For right now, I want you guys just focusing on getting the numbers plugged into the formula. We'll work in class on actually getting the calculator part completely down. So if you can get to this step here on your own, that's doing really well. Okay, here's another problem. So first thing you want to do, make sure it's in standard form. So it's equal to 0, so we're good. Now list your A, your B, and your C. So this is something that I would like you to be able to do on your own before you come to class. A is going to be 3, B is going to be negative 5, and C is negative 9. Make sure you're listing those. Okay, your quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a, and start plugging your values in. So x equals the opposite of b, so 5, plus or minus the square root, b squared, so negative 5 squared would give you positive 25. B squared will always be positive because you square a number, it always becomes positive. Minus 4, parentheses, a, parentheses, and c. All over 2 times a, so 2 times 3 gives you 6. Okay, so all I did was plug in the numbers, and you should be able to get to this point on your own before you come to class. From here, we'll work on the calculator work. So from there, I'm going to plug in this part right here into the calculator. And that part right there is called the discriminant. So now I have 5 plus or minus the square root, and 25 minus 4 times 3 times negative 9 is going to give you 133. So your discriminant is 133, which means it's greater than 0, so you have 2 solutions, all over 6. Okay, from there then it's still calculator work. So now you have x equals 5 plus the square root of 133 over 6, and x equals 5 minus the square root of 133 over 6. You're going to solve both of those to get x is equal to 2.76 when you do 5 plus the square root of 133, and then you're going to get x is equal to negative 1.09 when you take 5 minus the square root of 133. So there would be your 2 answers that you list. Okay, so again, your quadratic formula is up here. Your discriminant is just the stuff underneath the square root. And since it was positive, we had 2 solutions. And these were your 2 solutions right here and right here. All right, number 3. So we have it equal to negative 11. That's the first thing I noticed. So we need to get rid of that negative 11 to make it equal to 0. The opposite of negative 11 is add 11. So that's going to give me negative 2x squared minus 18x plus 11, because I can't add the 11 to anything because there's no like terms there. So now I just list my a, b, and c from here. So a is going to be negative 2, b is negative 18, and c is positive 11. Okay, start plugging stuff in. So x is going to be equal to negative b, so positive 18, plus or minus b squared. So 18 squared gives you 324, minus 4 times a times c. It's very important that you guys watch your signs when you do this. And then all over 2 times a. So negative 2 times 2 gives you negative 4. Okay, so again, I'm going to simplify the discriminant. So I'm going to simplify what's underneath the square root using my calculator, and I get 18 plus or minus the square root of 412 all over negative 4. Again, your discriminant is 412, so this is your discriminant. It's positive, so that means there's 2 solutions. So let's figure out what those 2 solutions are. So we're going to take x. We're going to take x is equal to 18 plus the square root of 412 all over negative 4. And x is equal to 18 minus the square root of 412 all over negative 4. When you do that then, you end up getting x is equal to, you do the first one, 18 plus, and you end up with negative 9.57. Then the second one, you do 18 minus the square root of 412, all divided by negative 4, and you get 0.57. So there would be your two solutions that your discriminant told you were going to get. All right, what I'd like you to do for tomorrow is make sure you get this one in standard form, and then please have it plugged into the quadratic formula. You don't need to actually put it in the calculator and solve for the two values. If you have a calculator that can do that, that's great. Otherwise, just get it plugged in. All right, we'll see you later.